Have you ever noticed how the harder you try to convince yourself you're capable, the louder that voice of self-doubt becomes? There's a reason for this, and once you see it, everything shifts. Let me show you what I mean. What if I told you that the very strategies most people use to fight self-doubt actually feed it, creating a vicious cycle that keeps you trapped in patterns of hesitation and second-guessing? In the next few minutes, I'm going to share something that might sound counterintuitive at first, but by the end, you'll understand why conquering self-doubt has nothing to do with positive thinking or willpower, and everything to do with a fundamental shift in how you relate to uncertainty itself. The people who move through life with unshakable confidence aren't the ones who never experience doubt. They're the ones who've learned to dance with uncertainty in a way that actually strengthens their resolve. They know something that the rest of us are missing, and it's definitely not what they teach in most self-help approaches. What I'm about to reveal will challenge everything you think you know about building confidence, and it might feel uncomfortable at first because it goes against every instinct you've developed about how to handle that critical voice in your head. But stay with me, because this understanding is the key to permanent freedom from the exhausting cycle of self-doubt that's been holding you back from the life you're meant to live. By the time we're finished, you'll have a completely different relationship with uncertainty, a practical framework that works without therapy or external validation, and the kind of inner security that no external circumstance can shake. Have you noticed how self-doubt creates a peculiar prison where the very act of trying to escape seems to tighten the bars? There's something happening beneath the surface that most of us miss because we're focused on fighting the symptoms rather than understanding the deeper mechanism that keeps us trapped. Picture this scenario that plays out in countless variations every day. You have an idea for a creative project, a business venture, or even just speaking up in a meeting. The moment the idea emerges, that familiar voice starts its commentary. Who are you to think you can do this? You don't have enough experience. What if you fail? What if people laugh at you? So you start building a case for your worthiness. You research credentials you might need, compare yourself to others who've succeeded, and try to gather evidence that you're qualified. But here's what happens next. The more evidence you try to gather, the more evidence you find for why you're not ready. Every expert you discover makes you feel less qualified. Every successful person you study reveals gaps in your own knowledge or experience. The research that was supposed to build confidence amplifies your sense of inadequacy. You end up more paralyzed than when you started, convinced that you need just a little more preparation, just one more skill, just a bit more time before you're ready. This creates what psychologists call a confidence paradox. The more you try to earn the right to feel confident, the more reasons you find to doubt yourself. You become trapped in endless preparation cycles, always getting ready to get ready, but never actually moving forward because the bar for enough keeps rising higher and higher. The real tragedy isn't just that this approach prevents action, it's that it fundamentally misunderstands what confidence actually is. Most people treat confidence like a qualification they need to earn before they can act, but authentic confidence is actually developed through action despite uncertainty, not through eliminating uncertainty before acting. The deeper root cause of persistent self-doubt isn't lack of skills, experience, or evidence of your worthiness. It's an adversarial relationship with the natural human experience of not knowing how things will turn out. Self-doubt thrives in the gap between your desire for certainty and life's fundamental uncertainty. The more you try to eliminate this gap through preparation, research, or seeking reassurance, the more you reinforce the belief that uncertainty is dangerous and that you need guarantees before you can trust yourself. Most people approach self-doubt like they're trying to win a debate against a particularly skilled opponent. They gather evidence, build logical arguments, and try to prove their case for why they should feel confident. But this opponent, the voice of self-doubt, has an unfair advantage. It can always move the goalposts. No matter what evidence you present, it can find new reasons why you're not ready, new scenarios where you might fail, new qualifications you're missing. Consider what happens to a muscle that's only exercised in perfect conditions with guaranteed success. It remains weak and underdeveloped because it never faces appropriate resistance. Similarly, when you only take action when you feel completely confident, you never develop the actual capacity to handle uncertainties, setbacks, or imperfect outcomes. Your confidence remains fragile because it depends on external conditions rather than inner resilience. The most insidious aspect of this pattern is how it creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you avoid taking action until you feel completely confident, you rob yourself of the experiences that would actually build genuine confidence. You remain in the realm of theory rather than developing practical mastery. Then, when you finally do act, often forced by external deadlines or circumstances, you're operating from inexperience, which makes mistakes more likely, which then confirms your original doubt about your capabilities. What's truly exhausting about this cycle is how it turns every opportunity into a crisis of self-worth. Instead of seeing challenges as chances to learn and grow, you see them as tests of your fundamental adequacy as a person. This transforms normal learning experiences into threats to your identity, making everything feel much more high stakes than it actually is. The questions that matter most are these. What if uncertainty isn't something to overcome, but something to befriend? What if the goal isn't to eliminate self-doubt, but to change your relationship with it? What if confidence isn't about knowing you'll succeed, but about knowing you can handle whatever happens? When you begin to explore these possibilities honestly, everything starts to shift about how you approach challenges, setbacks, and the inevitable uncertainty that comes with any meaningful endeavor. Let me tell you about Elena, a talented software engineer who discovered the secret to unshakable confidence through what initially felt like complete professional failure. For years, Elena had been trapped in a cycle of perfectionist preparation. She would spend months researching new technologies, taking online courses, and building practice projects before ever applying for positions that genuinely excited her. She told herself she was being thorough and responsible, but underneath, she was terrified of being exposed as inadequate. Despite her impressive skills and careful preparation, Elena consistently felt like she was behind everyone else. She would look at job postings and immediately focus on the requirements she didn't meet rather than the qualifications she possessed. Even when she did land interviews, she spent so much energy trying to hide her uncertainties that she came across as rigid and overprepared rather than genuinely capable and curious. The turning point came when Elena was laid off from a job she had outgrown but stayed in because it felt safe. Suddenly, she was forced to enter the job market without the luxury of endless preparation time. Her severance would only last a few months, and she couldn't afford to spend 6 months getting ready to look for work. For the first time in her career, Elena had to apply for positions where she didn't meet every single requirement. She had to go into interviews acknowledging gaps in her knowledge while highlighting her strengths and genuine enthusiasm. Most terrifying of all, she had to admit when she didn't know something instead of trying to fake expertise she didn't possess. The results were initially as uncomfortable as she had feared. Some interviews went poorly, some companies rejected her for lacking specific experience. But something unexpected also began to happen. The interviews where she was most honest about her limitations often went better than the ones where she tried to present herself as having no weaknesses. Hiring managers appreciated her intellectual honesty and her ability to clearly articulate how she would approach learning new skills. More importantly, Elena began to notice that her relationship with uncertainty was shifting. Instead of seeing each "I don't know" as evidence of inadequacy, she started viewing these moments as opportunities to demonstrate her learning agility and problem-solving approach. When asked about technologies she hadn't used, instead of deflecting or minimizing the gap, she would say something like, "I haven't worked with that specific framework, but here's how I would approach learning it based on my experience with similar technologies." Within 2 months, Elena not only found a new position, but landed a role that was a significant step up from her previous job. The company that hired her specifically mentioned that they were impressed by her intellectual honesty and her clear thinking about how to approach challenges outside her existing expertise. This experience taught Elena something profound that transformed not just her career, but her entire approach to personal growth.
Authentic confidence comes from developing comfort with the learning process, not from already knowing everything. She realized that her previous approach of trying to eliminate all uncertainty before acting had actually been keeping her in beginner-level positions because she never allowed herself to stretch into roles that would require on-the-job learning. The deeper principle Elena discovered is that self-doubt isn't actually about lacking qualifications, it's about having an uncomfortable relationship with the natural state of not knowing how things will turn out. When she learned to see uncertainty as information rather than threat, and learning as strength rather than weakness, her entire professional trajectory changed.
Like a tree that grows stronger by weathering storms rather than hiding from them, Elena's confidence became more robust through embracing challenges that stretched her capabilities rather than only taking on projects where success was guaranteed. This shift didn't eliminate uncertainty from her experience. It transformed uncertainty from an enemy to be defeated into a teacher to be respected. Here's what transforms everything about conquering self-doubt. Authentic confidence is built through action despite uncertainty, not through eliminating uncertainty before action. This insight completely reverses how most people approach building confidence, and it's the key that unlocks genuine inner security. Let me tell you about Dr. Marcus Webb, a research scientist who stumbled upon this principle during the most challenging period of his academic career. Marcus had always been the type of person who needed to understand everything thoroughly before proceeding. His graduate research was meticulous, his publications were carefully crafted, and his presentations were rehearsed to perfection. But this approach, while producing solid work, was also keeping him trapped in safe, incremental projects that never quite fulfilled his potential. The breakthrough came when Marcus was invited to collaborate on a research project that was completely outside his area of expertise. His initial instinct was to decline, feeling unqualified to contribute meaningfully. But circumstances, including funding pressures and timeline constraints, forced him to accept the collaboration and figure out how to add value despite his knowledge gaps. For the first time in his career, Marcus found himself in research meetings where he regularly had to say, "I don't know, but here's how I would think about finding out." Instead of spending months becoming an expert before contributing, he had to learn actively while participating in real problem solving. This felt terrifying initially, but something remarkable began to happen. Marcus discovered that his outsider perspective, combined with his strong analytical skills, allowed him to see patterns and ask questions that the subject matter experts had overlooked. His willingness to admit ignorance and ask seemingly basic questions often led to breakthrough insights that moved the research forward in unexpected directions. More profoundly, Marcus realized that his previous approach of extensive preparation before action had been based on a fundamental misconception about how expertise actually develops. He had believed that experts were people who had eliminated uncertainty from their domains, but working closely with leading researchers revealed that expertise is actually the ability to navigate uncertainty skillfully, not the absence of uncertainty itself. This understanding transformed Marcus's entire approach to professional challenges. Instead of avoiding projects where he lacked complete knowledge, he began seeking opportunities that would stretch his capabilities and require real-time learning. His research became more innovative because he was willing to explore questions that couldn't be answered through existing knowledge alone. The counterintuitive truth Marcus discovered is that confidence built through careful preparation is actually quite fragile because it depends on maintaining controlled conditions, but confidence built through successfully navigating uncertainty becomes increasingly robust because it's based on demonstrated ability to handle whatever emerges. While most people try to build confidence by accumulating evidence that they're qualified for specific challenges, true confidence comes from developing trust in your ability to learn, adapt, and problem solve in real time. This shift changes everything about how you approach new opportunities, setbacks, and the inevitable moments when you're operating outside your existing expertise. The principle works because it aligns with how humans actually learn and develop mastery. We don't become confident by thinking our way to certainty. We become confident by acting our way to competence through repeated experience with uncertainty.
Every time you take action, despite not knowing exactly how things will turn out, you build evidence that you can handle ambiguity and still move forward effectively. Think of how a skilled improvisation artist performs. They don't have a script that guarantees success, but they have deep trust in their ability to respond creatively to whatever emerges in the moment. This trust comes from thousands of hours of practice responding to uncertainty, not from eliminating uncertainty through preparation. This understanding transforms self-doubt from an enemy to be defeated into useful information about when you're growing beyond your current comfort zone. Instead of trying to silence the voice that says, "I don't know if I can do this," you can respond with, "That's right, I don't know for certain, and I'm going to find out through action." The most liberating aspect of this approach is that it makes growth and confidence available in every moment, regardless of your current skill level or circumstances. You don't need to wait until you feel qualified to start building real confidence. You can begin developing it immediately by taking the next right action despite uncertainty. When you understand that confidence is a practice rather than a prerequisite, everything changes about how you navigate challenges, opportunities, and the natural process of expanding your capabilities throughout life. The foundation of permanent confidence rests on 4 pillars that work together to create inner security that doesn't depend on external circumstances or perfect outcomes. Unlike confidence-building approaches that focus on eliminating doubt, these foundations help you develop a completely different relationship with uncertainty that actually strengthens with experience. The first foundation involves learning to work with uncertainty as an ally rather than treating it as an enemy to overcome. Most people exhaust themselves trying to eliminate uncertainty from their experience, but this creates a fragile confidence that collapses the moment unexpected challenges arise. Uncertainty partnership means developing the capacity to remain centered and effective even when you don't know how things will turn out. This starts with recognizing that uncertainty is not actually a problem to solve, but a natural condition of life that contains tremendous creative potential. When you're certain about outcomes, you're limited to repeating what you already know. When you're uncertain, you're open to discovering capabilities and solutions you didn't know existed. Practice uncertainty partnership by deliberately choosing actions that have unclear outcomes. This might mean having conversations where you don't know what the other person will say, starting projects where you'll need to figure out the approach as you go, or expressing ideas before you've perfected them. Each time you navigate uncertainty successfully, you build evidence that you can handle not knowing while still moving forward effectively.
The goal isn't to become comfortable with uncertainty in the sense of eliminating the discomfort. It's to become functional despite the discomfort. You develop the capacity to feel nervous, confused, or doubtful while still taking appropriate action. This creates a kind of confidence that's actually strengthened by challenging circumstances rather than weakened by them. Notice how uncertainty partnership feels different from uncertainty avoidance. Instead of trying to research, plan, or prepare your way to certainty, you develop skills for responding intelligently to whatever emerges. This includes learning to gather information efficiently without getting trapped in analysis paralysis, making decisions with incomplete data, and adjusting course based on feedback rather than sticking rigidly to predetermined plans. The second foundation focuses on building actual skills and capabilities rather than just trying to feel better about your current abilities. Self-doubt often contains accurate information about areas where you would benefit from development. And confidence built on genuine competence is far more sustainable than confidence built on positive thinking alone. Competence development means approaching skill building as an ongoing practice rather than a prerequisite for action. Instead of waiting until you're expert level before engaging with challenges, you develop competence through intelligent action and reflection. This includes learning to identify which skills are actually necessary for your goals versus which skills you think you should have to feel qualified. Create a practice of deliberately engaging with challenges that stretch your current capabilities while remaining within what psychologists call your zone of proximal development, the space where growth is possible but not overwhelming. This might mean taking on projects that require you to learn new skills while leveraging existing strengths, or gradually increasing the complexity of challenges as your competence grows.
The key insight is that competence development is accelerated through action rather than just study. While learning theoretical knowledge has its place, nothing builds genuine capability like real-world application with feedback loops. Practice seeking opportunities where you can apply developing skills in low-risk situations before taking on higher-stakes challenges. Competence development also includes learning to accurately assess your current abilities without either minimizing your strengths or exaggerating your weaknesses. Self-doubt often distorts perception in both directions. You might overlook significant capabilities while magnifying minor skill gaps. Developing realistic self-assessment helps you make more intelligent decisions about which challenges to embrace and which areas deserve focused development. The third foundation involves developing sophisticated responses to setbacks, criticism, and failure rather than trying to avoid these experiences entirely. People with fragile confidence are devastated by negative outcomes because they interpret them as evidence of fundamental inadequacy. People with robust confidence use the same experiences as information for improvement and course correction. Response mastery starts with learning to separate your identity from your performance. A failed project doesn't make you a failure as a person, it makes you someone who tried something that didn't work out as planned. This distinction allows you to learn from setbacks without devastating your sense of self-worth. Practice developing what could be called failure resilience by deliberately engaging in activities where temporary failure is likely and necessary for eventual success. This might include creative projects where multiple iterations are expected, learning skills that require making mistakes as part of the process, or pursuing goals where setbacks are normal rather than exceptional.
Response mastery also includes learning to extract maximum value from criticism and negative feedback. Instead of defending against criticism or being crushed by it, you develop the capacity to evaluate feedback objectively and use valid insights for improvement while discarding personal attacks or projections that aren't actually about you. The goal is to become anti-fragile rather than just resilient, developing the capacity to actually grow stronger through appropriate challenges rather than just surviving them. This means viewing obstacles as training opportunities and setbacks as valuable information rather than evidence that you should give up or that your goals are unrealistic. Develop practices for processing disappointing outcomes without letting them derail your long-term direction. This might include reflection processes that help you identify lessons learned, support systems that provide perspective during difficult periods, and decision frameworks that help you determine when persistence serves you versus when course correction is needed. The fourth foundation involves developing your own internal guidance system rather than outsourcing your sense of direction to external authorities or social validation. Self-doubt often emerges when you're disconnected from your own inner wisdom and constantly looking outside yourself for confirmation that you're on the right track. Internal authority means learning to trust your own assessment of situations, your own values and priorities, and your own sense of what's worth pursuing, even when others might not understand or approve of your choices. This doesn't mean becoming rigid or refusing input from others. It means developing a stable internal reference point that isn't easily swayed by external opinions or pressures. Practice internal authority by regularly checking in with yourself about what actually matters to you versus what you think should matter based on others' expectations. Notice when you're making decisions to avoid disappointing others rather than because the choice aligns with your authentic priorities. Develop the capacity to receive advice and feedback while maintaining ownership of your ultimate decisions. Internal authority also includes learning to validate your own progress and achievements rather than depending entirely on external recognition. While feedback from others can be valuable, your sense of accomplishment and direction shouldn't depend entirely on others' acknowledgement. Develop practices for recognizing your own growth, celebrating your own progress, and maintaining motivation even during periods when external validation is limited. The goal is to become what psychologists call internally referenced rather than externally referenced, drawing your sense of direction and worth primarily from internal sources while remaining appropriately responsive to external feedback and social considerations.
This creates a foundation of confidence that remains stable even when circumstances change or when others don't understand your choices. These four foundations work synergistically to create a form of confidence that's based on demonstrated capability rather than just positive thinking. When you can work effectively with uncertainty, continuously develop relevant competence, respond skillfully to setbacks, and trust your own inner authority, you develop the kind of inner security that no external circumstance can shake. Building unshakable confidence requires consistent, daily practices that systematically strengthen your capacity to act effectively despite uncertainty. These practices are designed to be integrated into your existing routine, while gradually rewiring your automatic responses to doubt, challenge, and ambiguity. Begin each day by identifying one action you can take that involves moving forward despite incomplete information or guaranteed success. This doesn't need to be a major life decision. It might be as simple as expressing an opinion in a meeting, trying a new approach to a routine task, or having a conversation you've been avoiding. The key is choosing something that requires you to trust your ability to handle whatever response emerges. During your morning routine, spend 5 minutes connecting with your authentic priorities for the day rather than just your scheduled obligations. Ask yourself, what would I do today if I trusted myself completely? This question helps you identify opportunities to practice confidence throughout the day rather than waiting for perfect conditions to feel self-assured. Set an intention for how you want to respond to uncertainty when it arises during the day. Perhaps it's, I will treat not knowing as an adventure rather than a threat. Or, I will ask clarifying questions instead of pretending to understand. Or, I will take the next right step even when I can't see the whole staircase. Having a clear intention helps you respond consciously rather than reactively when doubt emerges. Throughout the day, deliberately expose yourself to small doses of uncertainty as a way of building your tolerance and skill for navigating ambiguous situations. This might involve taking a different route to work, trying a new restaurant without reading reviews first, or speaking up in situations where you don't know exactly how others will respond. When facing decisions during the day, practice making choices with less than complete information rather than defaulting to extensive research or consultation. Start with low-stakes decisions and gradually work up to more significant choices. The goal is developing comfort with decision-making based on available information plus intuition, rather than requiring certainty before acting. Create opportunities to say, I don't know, honestly, when you actually don't know something, rather than deflecting or trying to fake expertise. Practice following I don't know with, but here's how I would find out, or, but here's what I think might be relevant. This builds comfort with intellectual honesty while demonstrating your problem-solving approach. Keep a simple daily record of moments when you handled challenges effectively, learned something new, or demonstrated capabilities you weren't sure you possessed. This isn't about bragging or inflating your abilities. It's about accurately recognizing evidence of your actual competence that self-doubt often causes you to overlook. Notice and document times when you successfully navigated uncertainty, whether the outcome was exactly what you hoped for or not. The goal is building a realistic database of evidence that you can handle ambiguous situations and learn from whatever emerges. This evidence becomes a resource during future moments of doubt. Practice articulating your capabilities and approach to challenges in clear, honest language. When someone asks about your experience with something, practice describing both your relevant skills and your approach to learning what you don't yet know. This builds comfort with honest self-assessment that neither minimizes strengths nor exaggerates weaknesses.
When setbacks, criticism, or disappointing outcomes occur during the day, practice a specific sequence of responses that build resilience rather than reinforcing self-doubt. First, acknowledge the disappointment without immediately jumping to conclusions about what it means about your worth or abilities. Second, extract any useful information or lessons from the experience. Third, identify the next constructive action you can take. Practice receiving feedback and criticism with curiosity rather than defensiveness or devastation. When someone offers criticism, ask clarifying questions to understand their perspective better rather than immediately agreeing or arguing. This builds skill for learning from feedback without being derailed by it. When you notice self-doubt arising, practice responding to it as information rather than truth. You might think something like, "I'm having the thought that I'm not qualified for this," rather than, "I'm not qualified for this." This subtle shift helps you observe doubtful thoughts rather than being consumed by them. Practice making decisions based on your own assessment of situations rather than constantly seeking external validation or approval. Start with small decisions about your preferences, schedule, or approach to tasks. Notice when you have clear inner knowing about something and practice honoring that knowing even when others might not understand your choice. When asked for your opinion, practice sharing your authentic perspective rather than first trying to figure out what others want to hear. This builds comfort with standing in your own authority while remaining open to other viewpoints. Set small boundaries throughout the day based on your actual capacity and priorities rather than trying to accommodate every request or expectation. Practice saying no to commitments that don't align with your values or energy without lengthy explanations or apologies. End each day with brief reflection on how you practiced confidence-building behaviors. What situations triggered self-doubt? Where did you act despite uncertainty? What did you learn about your actual capabilities versus your fears about your capabilities? Review the day for evidence of your competence and effectiveness that you might have overlooked in the moment. Self-doubt has a way of filtering out positive evidence while magnifying negative evidence, so conscious reflection helps create a more balanced perspective. Set intentions for tomorrow's confidence practice based on what you learned about your patterns during the day. If you noticed particular triggers for self-doubt, how might you respond differently if similar situations arise tomorrow? Weekly, identify one larger challenge that would require you to stretch beyond your current comfort zone while building relevant capabilities. This might be a professional project, creative endeavor, or personal goal that requires growth and learning rather than just applying existing skills. Plan this challenge in a way that includes appropriate support and learning resources while still requiring you to act despite uncertainty. The goal is finding the balance between overwhelming yourself and staying so safe that no real growth occurs. These daily practices work together to systematically build the neural pathways and behavioral patterns that support authentic confidence. Rather than requiring dramatic personality changes, they create gradual shifts in how you relate to uncertainty, challenge, and your own capabilities that compound over time into profound transformation. As your relationship with self-doubt transforms and your confidence becomes more robust, you'll discover deeper levels of mastery that extend far beyond personal development into leadership, creativity, and meaningful contribution to the world around you. Advanced mastery involves using your hard-won inner security to create positive change and inspire others to develop their own authentic confidence. True leadership emerges naturally when you're comfortable navigating uncertainty and helping others develop the same capacity. Leaders who can only function when they have all the answers become obsolete in rapidly changing environments, while those who can think clearly and guide others through ambiguous situations become invaluable. This kind of leadership isn't about having more confidence than others. It's about modeling what it looks like to engage constructively with uncertainty rather than being paralyzed by it. When you're in group situations where others are overwhelmed by not knowing what to do, your comfort with ambiguity allows you to ask clarifying questions, suggest experimental approaches, and help the group move forward despite incomplete information. Advanced uncertainty leadership involves helping others distinguish between problems that require more information before acting and problems that can only be solved through intelligent experimentation. You learn to guide groups through the process of taking calculated risks rather than defaulting to endless planning or analysis. This leadership quality becomes especially valuable during organizational changes, creative projects, or any situation where the path forward isn't clear. Your ability to remain calm and constructive during uncertainty helps others access their own problem-solving capabilities rather than getting stuck in anxiety or blame patterns. As your confidence matures, you naturally become more willing to engage in creative endeavors that have no guaranteed outcomes. True creativity requires venturing into unknown territory, and people limited by self-doubt often constrain their creative expression to safe, predictable forms that don't threaten their sense of competence. Advanced creative confidence allows you to start projects without knowing exactly how they'll develop, express ideas before they're fully formed, and share creative work that reveals your authentic perspective rather than trying to meet others' expectations. This openness to creative uncertainty often leads to breakthrough innovations and authentic artistic expression that wouldn't be possible through purely controlled approaches. You begin to see failure and criticism as natural parts of the creative process rather than evidence that you should stop creating. This resilience allows you to iterate, experiment, and refine your work based on feedback while maintaining the core vision that drives your creative expression. Creative risk navigation also involves learning to balance input from others with trust in your own creative instincts. You can receive feedback and suggestions while maintaining ownership of your creative choices, neither defensively rejecting all input nor abandoning your vision to accommodate every opinion. Perhaps the most profound expression of confidence mastery is how naturally you begin to mentor others simply through your way of being. People who are struggling with self-doubt are drawn to those who've learned to navigate uncertainty gracefully, not because they need advice, but because they need to see what's possible. This mentorship doesn't require formal teaching or therapy. It happens through your willingness to be honest about your own learning process, your comfort with admitting when you don't know something, and your demonstrated ability to take action despite uncertainty. Others observe how you handle setbacks, how you approach new challenges, and how you maintain your center during difficult circumstances. Advanced mentorship involves knowing when to share your own experiences and when to create space for others to develop their own relationship with uncertainty. You learn to ask questions that help people connect with their own inner wisdom rather than automatically offering solutions or reassurance. You also develop sensitivity to others' readiness for growth challenges. Sometimes people need encouragement to stretch beyond their comfort zones, and sometimes they need support for staying within appropriate boundaries. This discernment comes from your own experience with the delicate balance between growth and overwhelm. As your personal mastery develops, you begin to recognize how self-doubt operates not just individually, but within families, organizations, and cultures. You start to see how systems can either support authentic confidence development or perpetuate cycles of insecurity and performance anxiety. This awareness creates opportunities to influence positive change in whatever systems you're part of. In work environments, you might advocate for learning-focused approaches rather than perfectionist cultures. In family relationships, you might model emotional honesty and appropriate risk-taking. In community contexts, you might support initiatives that encourage experimentation and learning from failure. Systemic confidence building involves understanding that individual transformation is interconnected with collective healing. As you develop genuine inner security, you naturally contribute to creating environments where others can develop the same qualities. Advanced mastery brings its own unique challenges that require continued growth and adaptation. As you become more comfortable with uncertainty and develop stronger inner authority, you may find that some relationships change or become strained. People who are threatened by your growth or who preferred your previous patterns of self-doubt might resist your transformation. Learning to navigate these relationship changes with compassion while maintaining your commitment to continued growth requires sophisticated emotional and social skills. You learn to honor others' process while not compromising your own development, and to model possibility without becoming preachy or superior. You also face the ongoing challenge of maintaining humility as your confidence grows. True mastery involves understanding that confidence development is a lifelong process rather than a destination, and that there will always be new areas for growth and learning. The ultimate expression of confidence mastery is the legacy you create through your choices and contributions. This isn't about fame or recognition, but about the positive influence that ripples out from a life lived with authentic confidence and inner security. Every time you choose growth over safety, truth over performance, or authentic action over paralysis, you contribute to healing the collective patterns of fear and insecurity that limit human potential. Your willingness to be imperfect while still contributing meaningfully gives others permission to do the same. The most profound satisfaction of confidence mastery isn't personal achievement, it's knowing that your journey toward inner security has created more space in the world for others to discover their own authentic confidence. This understanding transforms confidence development from a personal improvement project into a form of service that contributes to the flourishing of everyone around you. Your relationship with uncertainty becomes a gift not just to yourself, but to everyone who witnesses your willingness to engage courageously with the unknown while maintaining your essential humanity and care for others. This is perhaps the deepest expression of confidence, the security to remain open, curious, and connected even in the face of life's fundamental uncertainty. The journey from self-doubt to authentic confidence ultimately reveals that the very qualities that make us human, our vulnerability, our uncertainty, our need for connection and growth, are not obstacles to overcome, but the raw materials from which genuine confidence is built. When you understand this paradox deeply, you discover that true inner security comes not from eliminating your humanity, but from embracing it so completely that nothing can shake your fundamental sense of worth and capability.